if public speaking, presentation puts the fear of lightning into you, then we need to tackle this. And I'm more than willing and wanting to help you and to make sure that you're given the various tips, techniques, and insights to be able to practice, eventually feel comfortable with, or at least get to a position of where you're at peace with the sound of your voice, with the way in which you sound, and you're able to present yourself and put forward whatever it is that you're delivering on in a confident manner. Stay tuned. When it comes to public speaking or presentations, or whenever it is that you're going to communicate something openly and to an audience, but you need to check, and it's not going to be necessarily live recorded, so you need to check that footage back. If you do not like the sound of your own voice, please know that you are not alone. Many people do not like the sound of their own voice, and in fact there have actually been several studies conducted throughout the year. First one was in 1966, and they actually gave a particular term to this, so they called it voice confrontation. And there's also a fantastic TED talk that I'm going to put within the description of this particular video by a young PhD researcher. She may be a professor now, by the name of Rebecca Kleinberger. So it's a fantastic TEDx talk where she also explains her research and giving a little bit more of the scientific reasoning behind why we don't like the sound of our own voice. And it really does boil down to a few things. So I'm going to really summarize this, and I'm talking bare bones summary. If you want a more detailed discussion and description from the scientific reasoning and as to why we don't like the sound of our own voice, I think Rebecca can explain it much better than I can, so I'll direct you to her TED talk. This isn't sponsored, by the way. I just think it was a fantastic explanation, and because it was a TED talk and she actually voiced her research, I think it's a good example of public speaking when it comes to technical information and presenting something that most of us can relate to. So we don't like the sound of our own voice. It has to do with the way in which we evolve as growing up. It has to do with the way in which our brain processes information. So our brain processes our voice. So our brain doesn't hear our own voice, which is something that I find quite revealing. And it also has it's also linked to the way in which the larynx is formed, our voice box, our structure, how that is formed within our bodies as we are growing up as children. But that's not the focus. I'm not here to delve into the scientific aspects of things. I'm here to delve into what you can do and what you need to do in order to feel comfortable with the sound of your voice, especially if you're somebody who is going to be doing content creation. You're going to be doing live recordings, which are then going to be recorded and played back to an audience over time. Starting your own podcasts, so you're going to be editing the videos and the audio where you specifically have to listen to things. Don't forget, we're living in a society where technology is rapidly evolving. So we have the Alexas, and what's the Google version equivalent of Alexa? Is there a Google version? I'm not sure. But we have voice technology with us. There are voice notes, and we have all of these various pieces of technology that's emerging, audiobooks as well, where the power of our voice is going to be needed and it's necessary. So it's really important actually that if you're one of these people who are going to be presenting on a large stage to a large audience and it's going to be recorded and you need to listen back, Or, importantly, if you're going to go for a live or as equally importantly, in fact, if you're going to be doing a live presentation or speaking publicly live, and it's not necessarily going to be recorded, but you're going to have to practice in order to make sure that you reach to the level and the standard, because let's face it, I will make no excuses about this. There are absolutely no shortcuts if you're going to be preparing for public speaking. You do need to practice. It is that simple. And one of the ways and common techniques that's often referred to people to use is to record themselves and to listen and to play back, and vice versa. So, tip number 1, if you're not comfortable with the sound of your own voice, the first thing that I would recommend is actually let's get into the understanding of the scientific reasoning, but don't dwell on it too much. Because if you've got a keynote that you're going to be delivering quite soon, you're going to be speaking publicly, there is no time. So you need to get to it quite quickly. Build that understanding. Effectively, your brain needs to get used to hearing you. We have several thoughts internally, positive, negative, etc. But we think in ourselves and we don't necessarily voice it out, which is what I meant when I said that our brain doesn't hear our voice. So you need to get your brain listen to hearing our voice. Our brain listens to other people's voices, and that's what the research shows. And it actually picks up cues from the way in which other people's voices sound. And I'm not even getting into accents and tones and formalities and all the rest of it. So that aside, get familiar with the science, build up just a basic understanding of how that works, so then you can use that to your advantage. I would say once you have done that, get your brain used to hearing you vocally and in a way that's nice and open. Tip number 2, reduce the formality. This is a tip that is given in general anyway, because the simpler your message, the more straightforward it is, the simpler language that you are using, the better, generally speaking. And of course, there are nuances to this. It depends who your audience is, it depends who you're presenting to and what you are presenting on. But the general rule of thumb is simpler normally tends to be better and easier, because you want your audience to be able to comprehend you. So, reduce the formality, and the reason why I say that, it will stop you from doing, oh, I'm sorry, you don't want to be doing that, because of course that's naturally going to change the way your voice is. That's going to change how you sound, which means that when you go and play back how you sound, you're going to sound different. And you'll be, because you're speaking differently, and naturally that's going to have an impact on you, your confidence, your self-esteem, and also how you perceive yourself and your own voice. So don't do that. Keep the language simple, keep the language clear when you're recording yourself and you're doing the various practices, and you want to make sure that you're using language that you or any other person, regardless of whether they're knowledgeable or not about your subject matter, is able to understand. The other thing that I would strongly suggest, actually, before I suggest something, let me say something else. The person who cares the most about the sound of your own voice is you. Your audience cares about what you are going to say and not how you sound. You care how you sound, and that's important because you want to put your best foot forward and you want to be comfortable with what you're saying. But what I'm trying to say here is it's about what you're saying. People want the information and they want to glean the insights and whatever it is that you're revealing to them that's going to make a fundamental difference to their lives. So don't stop yourself from putting out relevant information to the world that somebody out there is desperately needing. that you have, and you're not putting that out there because you don't like the way you sound. I think that's very important to say. But yes, substance over style. So focus on the content, the material. Get a PR manager, get a communications manager, but focus on the content and the material that you're putting out there, as opposed to how necessarily you sound. It's going to help you, and it will also make your life easier. Tip number 3, slow down. If you're speaking, if you're one of those people that speaks very quickly and is like this, 100 miles, slow down. That will, slowing down your speech, slowing down when you're presenting, it's going to set you at ease. It's going to bring down your heart levels. It's going to let you process your words, process what you're saying, gives you the ability to gather your thoughts. And this isn't advice that just necessarily relates to the sound of your voice. This is advice that relates more widely, to be honest. But in this particular case, it also helps with the sound of your voice. That way, your brain gets the time and the space to be able to process what it is that you're saying and how you are saying it. You need to give your brain a chance. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video. Your brain doesn't hear your voice. So you need to give your brain a chance to be able to actually process the information and process what it is that you're saying. That way, it's able then to help you familiarize yourself with how you sound. But if you're going and you're speaking at 100 miles an hour, it's going to be a struggle. And it means that you're doing yourself a disservice, and by not taking your time, and therefore it's just going to compound the problem, to be honest, because you're not going to be able to give your brain a chance to start appreciating and liking your voice. In order to help you slow down with your speech, slow down with your delivery of when you are speaking, I would also recommend practice breathing. Now, there are different types of breathing techniques, and some of these techniques will actually also contribute to bringing down your stress levels. Anxiety is normally a core reason. I believe I saw the statistic, 73% of people do not engage in public speaking as a result due to anxiety, or 73% of people suffer from public speaking anxiety and therefore they don't engage. So you need to practice breathing techniques. This will help you to slow down. This will help you to gather your thoughts. This will help your brain to be able to process what it is that you're saying once you have recorded yourself and you're playing back your audios and listening to the sound of your own voice. And it will also contribute positively to the delivery of what it is that you're saying as well. So I'm going to give you an example of diaphragmatic breathing technique. So there's a particular technique where commonly it's often been said what you want to do is breathe in and breathe out. So you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. But I was actually listening to a very interesting podcast from Stanford University, and I can put that in the description as well. And in that podcast, the professor was actually talking about how that's actually incorrect breathing advice. So I took that on board, and over the last week, I've actually been practicing this myself. So the tip that he recommended is not only do you breathe in through the nose, but you also want to double inhale. So you breathe in and you breathe in again, and then you breathe out. that is, that's supposed to help bring down your breathing, slow down your heart rate, but also bring down your anxiety levels. It's also supposed to help you, if you're at a more rested state, it should slow you down and you should be able to speak at a slower pace is what I'm trying to get at here. So those are some of the techniques that I would recommend at this stage. The idea behind that, the phrase, gosh, you love the sound of your own voice. It's often said with a derogatory undertone. But when it comes to public speaking, and if you're someone who's often been told that you like the sound of your own voice, or gosh, you talk a lot, that can actually be quite negative, and something quite negative for you to hear, especially if you're practicing for a presentation, public speaking, pitching to investors, talking to crucial people, to be honest, that can make significant changes to your life if you're a business person, if you're somebody in the corporate space. Normally it's people who, when they were younger and they were children and they were often told, you talk a lot. Listen, I'm going to say something right now which I think needs to be said. Loving the sound of your own voice is exactly what you need to be doing. Yes, you do need to love the sound of your own voice, especially, not just in general, but especially if public speaking or using public speaking as a channel to showcase your services, to talk about, to produce content and material, to break away from the anxiety of public speaking, to also position yourself as an authority, as a thought leader. People absolutely need to love your sound of your own voice, but more importantly, you need to love how you sound. You need to also love what it is that you're saying. Fall in love with your subject. Fall in love with your substance and the delivery of the information that you're putting out there, and you will most certainly grow to love your voice with time and with practice. I hope that's been helpful. I'm going to have a little think about what we're going to talk about next week, because there are several topics that are coming up, but I think it's going to be quite important that we talk about the most common problem, and I think I alluded to it already in this video, which is anxiety and public speaking. How do we get rid of, once and for all, being anxious about public speaking and presenting? Hopefully you guys will join me next week. See you soon. Bye.